Hi there and welcome to Real Talk Fitness with AMPT. I'm your host, Ashley Cummins. For those of you who don't know, I'm a busy mum of two energetic boys. I run a business in a PT studio called ANPT and also like to push myself in physical activities that include powerlifting, high rocks and running events. So with all of that, I love sharing knowledge and interviewing other people to help even just one person change their perspective on different subjects. And today's episode, we have Vanessa joining us, which has wore multiple different hats, but just started a YouTube channel called Life After Uniform. So after identifying in the military for so many years and now going on a journey in self-development, I have Vanessa on today's episode to share her story, and hopefully you guys can take a few things away from this too. So let's dive in. Well, because obviously I'll cut all this bit out. What I'm thinking, I've done some dot points. So obviously getting to know you and then leaving the military and then, speaking about your YouTube channel, and that's called Life After the Military. Is that
So,
what the...
so the YouTube series I've started is called Life After Uniform.
Yeah. No, perfect. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then CrossFit and finding yourself again. A lot of the listeners that I have on Real Talk Fitness with AMPTs, we have such a variety of different people on there that I've had as guest speakers, and I think a lot of the people really resonate with the mindset. And I think, your YouTube channel, like even just watching that myself, I think so much identity and linking it to working out and that sort of stuff is kind of where I want to take this. And then the mindset and finding yourself, right? Because I feel like a lot of the people that I talk to, like even, my oldest client, 74, like I don't think she really knows who she is still. So yeah, I feel like we'll start with telling us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
So I joined the Navy when I was 23, and to be honest, like nobody knows who they are when they're 23, right? You know, I was still finding myself, and I joined the Navy originally as a clerical assistant because I thought I wasn't smart enough to do anything else. And not saying that that kind of work isn't, you don't need to be intelligent, but I just thought of any other role like becoming an aircraft technician or a physical trainer, which is the two roles I ended up transitioning to. I just didn't think I was good enough or smart enough to do those things. So I joined as a clerical assistant, and I literally did that for like 3 months before I was like, no, I think I can do more. And I started to see what I was capable of just from the things that I went through in my initial training in recruit school with the Navy. And from there, I transitioned to become an aircraft maintenance engineer. And I spent the next 8 years becoming an aircraft maintenance engineer and a supervisor in the role. And I then became, so I did, there's a lot in this, like obviously 11 years in the military, and I'm sort of cutting it down into into like this one little
Yeah, yeah.
conversation. But I mean, ultimately, I became an aircraft technician, and from there, I decided I needed a change into something else. I had evolved and grown, and I didn't quite know how. And I knew that being in the gym and fitness was something that has run parallel to my aviation career for quite some time. So I thought maybe I could try and turn this passion into a career. And so that's when I applied to become a physical training instructor, and I was successful in that. And I was a physical training instructor for 3 years where I instructed new entry recruits, so basically off the street into the Navy, and also trainees who were still quite new in the Navy doing their job specific training. And from there, I decided that it was time to leave. I'd done 11 years and I quite burnt out. And looking back now, I didn't realize at the time just how burnt out I was. And from there, of course, I just went straight back into work. I was like, I need to leave. I need to get a job. I need to work. I need to earn money. And what was the one thing I was familiar with? Aviation. So I went back to my trade as an aircraft technician, and I worked in different jobs, different defense contract work. And I started to notice a bit of a shift in things. And, I was training in the gym a lot and I picked up a camera and something felt different with the camera. And that's when that sort of part of me evolved. And I started to really dive into being creative. And I started to find this other part of myself that I didn't even know existed. So, and then, that's evolved into starting a media business, and now it's evolved into turning the camera onto myself and telling my story. And I think a big part of this does come from my time in the military. So who I am now and how I've found what I've found is from transitioning, and now I'm using skills that I had in the military to do what I'm doing now. And it's kind of like this holistic life approach, and it's still evolving. It's still new and it's still evolving, and to be honest, I don't know where it's going to be in the next 5 to 10 years. But I'm literally living it now and I'm still figuring things out.
Yeah, it's so crazy how I feel like, I guess not believing in yourself, and then just throwing yourself into like anything in the defense, to obviously, evolving to where you're at now. What led you to ideally decide to join a defense force? Like not so much, the role itself, but what made you decide that that's what you're going to do at 23?
Mm. I actually saw an ad on TV, and I talked about this in one of my episodes recently. And it was like 7 days in the Navy, and it was like showing them at sea. And I remember like seeing the ship, and it was like rough seas. And, then there's guys like swabbing the deck with their mops. And then all of a sudden it like went to them being in like Southeast Asia somewhere, like riding a scooter. And then it was like back on the ship and they were firefighting. And I was like, this looks this looks insane. This looks so cool. And I just thought that looks like an adventure. And but like the words that came to my mind were adventure with purpose, because it still had some kind of purpose and identity behind it. And I guess at that time, because I didn't know who I was, you kind of attach yourself to something and you're like, that's an identity. So like there's a role and you're like, that would be cool. I'm going to try and fit into that identity. And the travel was a huge thing. I knew that I enjoyed travel. So I thought, you know what? I think the Navy, it was just something that was calling me. And so, yeah, I started the enlistment process from pretty much not long after I saw the ad. So, the ad did the job, I suppose.
Yeah, that's like mind blowing. But I guess, obviously have following you for a while, with the CrossFit side of things, right? With that physical training, because obviously going back to, you know, that brief breakdown of the military and the physical training and whatnot, you're quite a high level athlete in CrossFit as well. And I know in one of your episodes that I watched myself, you spoke about that, and how that just became, I guess, who you were because you didn't know who you were in the military in a
Mm.
roundabout way. How did the CrossFit fill that gap for you at the time?
Yeah, I think with identity, if you don't know who you are, so I believe if you don't know who you are, you're going to try and just fill the hole with something, right? You're going to try and you do try and figure it out, but I feel like I've tried to attach myself to things and then I'm like, I'm going to do CrossFit. I'm a CrossFit athlete, or, I'm in the Navy. This is, And you kind of attach yourself to that and also all of the particulars that come with that role. And the difference, so with let's start again. So when I left the Navy, I had a huge hole. I needed to fill the hole, and I was doing CrossFit in the military, and I felt this strong pull towards training more, and I wanted to compete. I had this dream of standing on the competition floor and being at national level and competing and being at my best. And I was sort of already starting to attach myself to that identity, not knowing who I was when I left the Navy and sort of detaching from my identity in the military in a way. And so I felt this really strong pull. And as I was getting out, that's sort of where everything, my focus went to. So as soon as the military was out and I was simply just working to work and earn money, I'm now like, okay, where's all my focus going into? And it was CrossFit then. And then that became a huge identity. And I think that that's a lot of the people that follow me, probably not really in the last 6 months, but definitely prior to that, know me from my CrossFit time and my experience in that.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that's when I first came across you and then realized that you've done photography and so
Mm.
forth and so forth. And now here we are doing a podcast and going more deep, I think, into that.
Yeah.
And when you kind of went on this journey, I feel that you have spoke about this in a few of your episodes, and I really do like them because they're so true. But at what point did you realize that you're like, CrossFit is just filling a hole. That's not really who I am. Who am I? At what point did that sort of, because you stepped away from it for a little bit.
Mm.
I did see a recent part of your videos that you are going back to it.
Hmm.
At what point did you kind of go, hang on, this isn't who I am. This is something that I might enjoy, but it's not my identity? At
Hmm.
what point? Because I feel like so many people that follow and listen to Real Talk Fitness are struggling with that as well and get caught up in that I'll be happy when I achieve this and like I want to be this and I'll be happy. And it's like you can be happy right now when you know who you truly are.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
how did that all, because that's a huge epiphany. Like as you said, you were competing at a national level, quite well known, a great athlete, and then to just kind of go, okay, that's not really who I am. It's something I like, but it's not who I
Hmm.
am.
I think it's come down to recognizing how I'm feeling. And when I left the military, being able to slow down, and it's been a huge, long process of really slowing down my life. I think a lot of people are just living, 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 thinking this is how my life is. But when I actually had the opportunity to slow down a little bit, things started to evolve. If I think about my military, my CrossFit, and now my creative work, they are integrated somewhat. So, I was still training and fitness was still a huge part of the military. And then from there, I transitioned into more of an athlete lifestyle. And then my creative work started in the gym. So these identities have overlapped. And it's just been this me evolving and actually taking the time to notice, hey, I'm feeling this feeling and I'm feeling this pull. And I think it's pulling me in this direction and actually trusting that. And I don't think you can do that while you're in, survival mode or you're in autopilot and you're not actually stopping and pausing and reflecting. So a huge part of my last 5 years have just been constant reflection and asking myself questions and asking why I'm doing things. And I think that that's sort of how it's evolved. It might look like it's happened really quickly, but me leaving CrossFit for a period of time really happened slowly. And I knew the last time I stood on the competition floor, and this is when I talk about the feelings that I felt when I was standing there. I had the last event, and it was a one rep max snatch, and I remember standing there and just having this feeling of like, you need to take some time off competing, and I just knew it, and I
Wow.
felt it, and I accepted it, and I was like, I'm feeling this feeling and just being okay with that. And, I just knew my creative work was starting to come in a little bit more. So I'm like, well, great, I can focus myself a little bit more towards that part of myself.
Yeah, wow. I feel like that is, and the takeaway that I get from that, and anybody that is listening to our episode, is that I think, as you said, what might seem to have happened quite quickly, it's the deep inner work that you've
Mm,
done asking yourself those questions. And it was quite funny. I was having a conversation with someone today about feelings and actually asking yourself why you're feeling those feelings
mm,
and allowing yourself to feel them.
mm-hmm,
Because I feel what you just said then is a huge, big takeaway is that, you know, being okay with that and allowing yourself to feel those feelings
mm-hmm,
doesn't mean that it's the end. Because again, you obviously might go back to it. I feel a lot of people are scared to leave that identity of whatever it might be that's keeping them in
mm,
that rat race, you know,
yeah,
that lifestyle, because it's like I'm identified as this person. If I stop doing that,
mm.
what does that mean?
I
Did
think
you
some
have any
people,
feelings like that?
yeah, I think people are scared of who they really are, or they might be scared of the work that's involved in finding out who they really are. But I've absolutely loved the journey of finding out who I am because it's it's been a lot of fun. It's like it's been a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun. Of course, there's been low times and things like that, but I've really enjoyed looking back and going, thinking about this old version of me in the military, and then looking at who I am now, going, wow, I'm a completely different person. And you say the people say, the saying people don't change, but I think that's you can definitely change. I think that it's more about a path of unbecoming and becoming or unbecoming and trying to find out who you want to be and not letting the world speak for that. So you're
Yeah.
actually trying to drive that. You're the one that's in control. You don't have to do the things that everyone else or the world is telling you or what you think your fears or your judgment. And I think once you step into that, that's when you can really, really embrace that journey. And it's a lot of fun. And you really do grow and learn. And you start to, I've felt that I've started to enjoy my life a lot more since I've actually tried to figure out who I am.
Yeah. And I just keep coming back to how you said like
Yeah.
what the world says that we should be, all of those sorts of things. I feel that that even resonates with me personally because it's like we put these expectations, nobody else does, these expectations on ourselves,
Mm,
and we just get caught up in that day to day. Every day rolls into the next, and the weeks, and then the months, and then the years gone. And
hmm.
it's like, have you been actually living or have you just been existing?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like that in itself, there's so many tips and questions that I have for you from that because that is so courageous, but also I feel that like the slowing down, as you said before, everyone just gets busier. Nobody
Mm.
stops. And yeah, I feel that in this whole process of rediscovering yourself, what did it actually look like? Because we see, what we're sharing now and what you're sharing on your YouTube channel, but what did the process of rediscovering yourself actually look like?
The first thing for me was writing. I started journaling and I started journaling because my therapist is like, you need to start writing things down or start actually trying to get what's in me out. Because once it's out, it's there. And then for
Yeah.
me, I'm a very visual person and I like to do things. So I need to write and then see it and then feel it. So that was the first thing for me. and I was journaling so much. I still journal all the time now, and a lot of the work that you see on social media, and especially my poetry, is just journal entries of my emotions and feelings. But that was a huge part for me. And then again, it sort of evolved from there. And I think journaling as well, because you have to stop, right? You stop, you're thinking, you're writing down, so you are actually pausing and reflecting. So it covers
Yeah.
all of those things that I've talked about. And the other thing that I noticed is you see all this stuff about, how to find yourself and how to discover yourself and figure things out. I don't think there's one way of doing it. That's just one way that's worked for me. And I think, again, this is where you got to go to trying things yourself and seeing what works for you. And I already know I'm a visual person. I already know that I need to do things. I need to feel like I'm doing something, I'm being productive, and writing was that for me. So that was it. I guess that was an easy start for me. And I think if I was going to tell somebody else, they could start with writing, but it really depends on them.
Yeah,
But
discover themselves.
yeah, I think writing is a huge thing. Look, if you do it for a month or 2 or 3 months and it doesn't work, then then you've got data there to go, well, this didn't work for me. Okay, what will work? But from there, it's evolved into therapy as well. Like, so I was going to therapy every fortnight, which is stemmed from my time in the service. And that's been a huge thing. So that's another outlet, another platform that I can get things out of me. So we're holding all these things in, but if you're getting it out and actually, it's like laying things on the table, right? You can actually look at it and be like, oh, okay, you can unpack things and actually start to look and reflect. And that's when you can start to figure things out. So
Yeah,
they're the
and
two
yeah.
biggest things for me, for sure.
And I feel like, again, so many people, like I speak to somebody monthly, and I feel like so many people, I think it's more normal now, but for so long it was like weak to speak. And then there's been so much more around that mental health. But as you
Mm,
said, we seem to carry all of these things alone without actually physically unpacking them or
hmm
verbalizing them, writing them down, whatever it might be. It's like we're filling up this backpack that is just weighing us and sinking us to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
Um, so that I feel like that is so powerful in terms of starting that journey. Like wherever you are, you can write down how you're feeling
hmm
and why we're feeling that way, I guess, as well. And I I feel like there's so much like back and forth I want to ask.
Yeah.
But when you look back at your identity, obviously in the military, very disciplined and you are who they say you are kind of thing. And then, going to a physical trainer and then a CrossFit athlete. When you stepped away from that, did you ever feel pressure to always be strong and disciplined and capable rather than being vulnerable?
Yes, a lot. And when I first left, because I left the military, but it was still really deep in me. It still is now. I still see little sparks of it here and there. But because I had actually gone back to a trade that was so close to my time in the military, and I was also working alongside uniform members still because I was working as a defence contractor. So I was very much still embedded in the system when I first left. So definitely, when I first got out, those first 2 to 3 years when I was still quite embedded in the military lifestyle. Also, my partner at the time was still serving. So, it was still very much a part of my life for quite some time.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess, cutting that sort of attachment. What feelings come up? Because I feel a lot of people, again, no one else, and I guess that's a huge realization in everybody's journey, wherever they're up to, but realizing that nobody holds expectations on who we're supposed to be other than ourselves. And at what point did you go that pressure of always being strong or disciplined or capable, like especially obviously a high-end athlete of CrossFit, always feeling the pressure to perform at your best always. and then that discipline that comes from being in the military. How did you overcome that slowly? Because they're massive expectations
Mm,
on yourself, both mentally and then obviously the CrossFit like aspect physically.
mm,
At what point did you kind of go, I can't, and you spoke about it at the start where you didn't realize how burnout you were. At
mm.
what moment did you kind of go, these expectations or realities or, whatever it is labeled as isn't
Mm.
realistic to continue?
Yeah, there's a few things I want to unpack there. I want to touch a little bit more on, the discipline and being strong part. And this is sort of like, I guess, another little branch off of, you know, being in the defense, but also working in a male dominant role as a female. And I think that that's another part that comes into it. And that's been a huge struggle for me of, trying to be strong and, you're around men and it is a little bit different. And obviously we're getting into like another little bit of a different topic here, but that's definitely been a huge thing for me as well, but also the industry. So because I didn't really stray too far and I was still in the environment, I think the biggest thing that's allowed me to sort of progress and understand and accept that I don't need to be this strong, disciplined person all the time now is because of the environment. The environment's changed, but environment changing over time as well, and it's been very slow. As I said, I left. I went into defence contract work, and then from there, I eventually left, and then I actually started teaching as well. So I eventually started teaching, but I was teaching people who were defence contractors. So as you can see, it's getting a
Yeah.
little less and a little less. So the further away I got and the further I removed myself from the environment, the easier it was for me to see. It's like if
Yeah.
you're in this environment and you have this, also you have your conditioning from the environment, you can't get rid of it because the environment's going to keep, you're going to keep wanting to be that person that you were. And I think now that I've removed a lot of noise from my life. I've removed a lot of environments that make me do those things and feel that way. And I think it's been a hell of a lot easier. I don't know if you can do it without actually removing yourself from the environment.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And I do feel like it very much intertwines with everything that we're speaking about today. And I feel that a lot of people have a lot that they can take away because I talk about a lot of this, I guess, in my self-development sessions with people, is that environment does play a factor of who you are. It's like, what is your environment that you're in? Whereas we
Mm,
don't talk about that in terms of 90% of the time that we spend at work. Like,
mhm,
that environment, how is that affecting you? Is that affecting you positively, negatively? Is that person that you want to show up as? I
mhm,
feel that that's not spoken about, and that's so powerful because as you slowly removed yourself, you didn't have to hold, I guess, that mask of that strong person all the time.
mhm,
Did you find that, because again, I feel like I keep coming back to this CrossFit athlete part because I feel that, like, you were so successful at that, but again, coming from that background of discipline and pushing the limits, and it kind of intertwines, right? But it's just physically now, not so much mentally and
mm,
pressure. Did you find when you like sort of weaned yourself away from those other environments that the competitive part, other than the moments and feelings that you had on the competition floor the last time, sort of made it easier as well? Because I feel like that identity, especially all these people that, I follow, and again, social media is more highlighted reels of
mm,
CrossFit athletes. Nobody talks about the mental strain of
mm,
pushing your body to those limits. Like, you've pushed yourself mentally, but let's kind of speak about the physical aspect. Like, you were competing at quite high levels, and how did that affect you? Because I'm sure that consumed 90% of your life other than work.
mm. Look, I think my time competing, so just to give a bit of a background, I competed in 2023 and 2024. So 2023, I competed in Torian Pro and Down Under in the same year. And then 2024, I competed in Down Under as an individual masters athlete. And I think very much in those years, I was still stuck in this discipline, strong mindset. So that version of me that most people have seen is that version.
Yeah.
And that's the burnt out version of me. Looking at some of the photos of me, I was underfueled. I was experiencing a lot of health issues, a lot of injuries that just kept like lingering around and just wouldn't go away. A lot of these little signs and things like that. And it's when you first start to feel a pull or that little gut feeling, it starts off really slow. It starts off of like, oh, something's not quite right, and then it grows. And that's what was happening to me, especially in 2024. And when I knew I was training and I was training for Down Under 2024, and that's when the feeling was getting stronger and stronger. And I had this feeling, I'm like, I think this is going to be my last year. Okay, let's not think about it right now. It's just I've got this feeling, I'm acknowledging that. And then when I was physically there on the floor competing, and that's when I got the full feeling of like, okay, this is it. This is where I need to take a break. And I think it's like I've talked about, it's this very slow progress. And I think acknowledging them as it evolves and as that feeling grows. So very much I was so deep then. And now I took a year off CrossFit, I think actually more like 18 months really. So I had about 6 months where I was kind of doing CrossFit and I was doing functional. Then I'm like, right, I need something else. So I started doing high rocks and I did a year of high rocks. And that completely flipped me. So that was huge. I had to slow down. I had to pace myself. It was an endurance event. I had to be in my head constantly for an hour to 2 hours at any one training session. So that completely flipped everything for me. And now what you're seeing is a live version of me trying to go back to CrossFit as somebody else, not the person I was back in 2023, 2024. So this is all new territory for me now. Going back into CrossFit, I've literally just stepped back into a CrossFit type training yesterday. And I'm like, okay, now what can I do being this new version of myself?
Yeah, that's crazy. And again, people don't talk about that. Did you feel that like those 2 years that you tied a lot of your self-worth to your performance?
Oh, 100%. I was leaderboarding, I was constantly comparing myself. I would always tell myself, stay in your lane, but I never did. I was definitely so deep in just trying to be this CrossFit athlete identity because I just didn't think I had anything else to be living for and no other purpose in my life. And the worst thing is when you're so deep in that one thing, when that gets taken away or you have an injury or something comes up, you you just fall to the ground and you're just like, well, what am I doing? And everything just comes crashing down. So I think now this other version of myself, I do have other things that I can do that I'm not tying myself to one specific identity and relying specifically on that to be, okay, this is who I am. So when it falls apart, then I don't know who I am.
Yeah, no, that is so powerful, so powerful. The comparison thing, I've spoken about that a lot with a lot of different people, and I feel that every time I speak about it, I take away something new, and I hope that the listeners do as well. Is, as you said went before, is that we always tell ourselves to stay in our own lane. I feel it's at some point, if you're tying your identity to achievements, it's hard not to compare yourself.
Mm,
How did you like get out of that mindset and rat race? Because I feel like so many people, whether it's on the work corporate ladder, whether it's in
mm.
the gym, whether it's just normal people going for a run or whatever it might be, I feel like comparison comes up everywhere. But I feel if you really truly know who you are, the comparison doesn't consume you the same. How have you, in your journey of this discovery, dealt with that comparison being so strong on the CrossFit floor? Because it is, if you're not first, you're
Mm,
last sort of mentality. And you do compare yourself to other people. What are they better at? How can I get better? How did
mm,
you overcome that? Because I feel like there's so many things that people could take away from that just to help fulfill themselves, because comparison is horrible.
mm. Look, I'll be completely transparent. It's something I'm still battling. I don't think that it's something that truly goes away. It's just about how you manage it and how you cope with it. And I think now I'm probably more comparing myself to other creators than I am athletes now. And I think that's just because of the stage of my life that I'm in. But now it's different. I still have that comparison thought. That's normal and it's going to happen. But now what follows that is more important, and that's the managing or the coping strategy. So now when I see something, I see a creator and I see them doing something, and I'm like, oh, I wish my work looked like, oh, I wish I got that many views, or whatever it is in my head. I just think now that my why and my purpose is so strong behind what I'm doing now that that backs me. And that
Yeah.
comes back to like taking the time to actually figure out truly what I wanted to do. And there's a lot of moving parts in this, but 6 months ago, I left my full-time teaching job to go all in on this. My media business, and I wanted to create content for myself. And I just went all in, and that was a huge shift for me. I think financially for me, I was in a spot that I could do that, and I know a lot of people aren't. And I'm so lucky and so grateful that I have been in that position. But that was the big game changer for me. In the last 6 months, I've probably done more growth than what I did in the, 2 or 3 years after I left the military, because I had no noise. I was not in a work environment that was telling me to be something or be a certain way. And it was just me. And I was like, well, waking up each day, I'm like, well, I run my life now. And I think that was a huge thing. So I think having time to yourself, if obviously I know people can't just quit their jobs and go and chase their dreams. Financially, it's difficult for a lot of people to do that. But I think allocating time alone for yourself and doing things that pull you towards what you want to do, that speak to you rather than what you should do because that's what you've always done.
Yes. I love that. I love that. That's so deep, but I feel that taking that, people could change their lives. Like, even if we
Mm,
help change one person's life by listening to today's episode, I think that's something, yeah, that's something so powerful. I have no words.
mm,
Because it's true when you say that, like, the comparison may never go away, but going back to, your purpose and your why, that
mm.
being so strong that it's able to dull down. It's kind of like, that outweighs the comparison. Doesn't really matter
Yes.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Wow. And the time to yourself, you're so right. We identify, like, whether it's whatever role you play or that work's telling you to play, and then, whether people have kids or husbands, wives, whatever, like
Mm,
you're made to fit all these different hats. And it's
yeah.
like, when can you take them all off and just be? I think
Mm,
that's super important too. So tell us more about your YouTube channel, Life After the Military. So what inspired
yeah.
you to start it?
Yeah. So I started life after uniform because I had no one to film, to be honest. I was in between jobs, and I decided a lot with my media business that I didn't want to chase the money. I'm like, if I start chasing the money, I'm going to be led to things that make me unhappy. That's just doing the same thing I've been doing. I want to find out truly what I should be creating and what's actually going to be aligned to me and what's going to create impact and something that means something to me. So I stopped chasing jobs that were just for money. I knew I was in a good financial position that I could do that. So I turned the camera on myself and I thought, where does all of this stem back to? And the answer was my time in the service. And I think because I was quite young when I joined, I became a person, I became a certain version of myself, and that kind of molded who I am today. And then I think leaving that, since I've left the military, my life has just kind of felt like this movie of just trying to figure out what I want to do and who I want to be. And so I thought, what greater way to try and make impact by telling my story and bring awareness around transition from military life to civilian life. And not only I think this could obviously help people that have gone through what I've gone through, but this could apply to leaving a career, any career. You could have been a doctor for 20 years or whatever industry it is. That it's still the same thing. You still get tied to that identity and then you still have to transition to something else. Obviously, military is very specific, and that's what I am comfortable talking about, and that is like, I guess, my experience. So that's why I'm putting it out like that. But I think there's so many lessons that can be learned from and shared from just that experience that can be applied anywhere, really. And I just wanted to have fun with it too. Like, I love creating YouTube videos, and I'm like, I don't have anyone to create these for. So I'm just going to do it on myself, and I'm just going to figure it out, and I'm just going to go on this journey, and I don't know where it's going to lead me. And then that kind of just made me excited that I could have something that was my own, and I could also express myself the way I wanted and create impact. So it kind of just has evolved from there, and everything's still unfolding. I'm still figuring it out. I'm 6 episodes deep, and I dedicated saying I'm going to release one episode a week. I don't care how long it is, 5 minutes, 40 minutes. I'm just going to do it. And there's one big thing I asked myself when I decided to do this life after uniform. And the question I asked myself was, what would I want to do if nobody watched it? No, there was no views, there was no validation, nobody cared, or like at least in my head, I thought nobody cared. What would I want to do? And the answer was so clear to me. And it was this YouTube series, Life After Uniform. And I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. That that's so like I guess it just answered another one of my questions, like what sort of inspired you. That question in its own, I feel like I'm definitely going to pop that in the show
Mm,
notes, because again, that question, I feel that would bring up so many mixed emotions for people. If you take away that word validation is so strong in that sentence, is if you take away the validation from other people or the views or whatever, what is it that you want to
mm,
do? How do you want to serve this time that we have?
yeah.
Like, that is so powerful. Definitely going to pop that in the show notes. I feel that
Mm,
even people that don't write, even just to ponder on that sentence alone and lean into what they feel like, from what you've been speaking about before, is, you know, allow yourself to feel those feelings.
mhm.
Which, yeah, that's powerfully strong. In terms of it, like you said, you're 6 episodes deep. Like, what is the mission behind it? Is it trying to help bridge that gap for others for change, like as you said, career, or is it mainly aimed at military, or what sort of, I guess, market are you hoping to sort of, reach with all of this stuff?
My biggest market is definitely people transitioning, because I believe that there is a gap, and the gap is not so much, there's heaps of support networks, there's all these clinical ways, and there's lots of support groups as well, but I don't feel, and I haven't found anyone that's actually sharing their experience while they're experiencing it. So they're like living it, breathing it, understanding it, and then putting it out there and trying to connect with other people that are going through something similar. And it's been really, really cool to see and very amazing as well to I've had so many people reach out to me that I've served with and are going through these feelings that I had before I left. So I'm kind of touching on people that are on the verge of wanting to go or getting that pull, that first pull that I talked about. And then
Yeah.
I'm also getting people that have transitioned just recently. So not so much people that have been out for a long time, but I've been out for 5 years now, and I feel like I'm only really just properly trying to transition out of the military now. And I think that's why I'm starting to get my audience towards people that are either just on the verge of leaving or in that transition period. That's where it is sitting at the moment. But where I want it to evolve into is creating awareness around veterans and the struggles that we go through not just in the 1 year after, but the 5 years after, the 10 years after as well. Everyone's on their own journey and it takes their own period of time to go through that journey. But
Yeah.
that's sort of where I want to go into, and not just for veterans, for families too, because families don't understand or they may not fully understand just what their partner's going through, or their brother, or their sister, or their son, or their daughter. And I think if they were watching someone like me, they'd be like, oh, maybe that's what's going on with my son or my daughter. And it just creating awareness means that people are going to talk about it, which means they're going to get those things that are stuck in them out. And I'm hoping that it's going to help people in a way that I probably can't even see yet.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think you will. Even myself watching them, I've been a personal trainer for 15 years, and that's been the identity. There's multiple times where I've had a pull where I want to change, but watching your YouTube channel, it's like it's possible. It can happen.
Mm,
Like it's going to be okay. So I feel that you
yeah.
100% will definitely reach those markets, and it's really, really exciting to watch them unfold. If there's one message that you would like listeners to take away from today's conversation, what do you feel it would be?
One message. That's hard.
Yeah, I feel like there was so much good stuff that we covered.
Yeah. It's hard. I honestly think my strongest question for this whole thing is what would you do if no one was watching?
Yeah,
What would you do if no one was watching? If, it doesn't matter what people say, if it doesn't matter about money, if no one liked your stories or if nobody saw you do the thing, it's like if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a sound? Well, yeah. And I think a
yeah,
lot of us are driven by this. And me, I know I have been and probably still are a little bit. I'm still working on that. But I think that's a huge question because that's when you start to figure out your purpose and your why. Because so many of us have our purpose and our why built into something else, somebody else. But if it's built truly within us and deep within us, I think that there's just no stopping you because there isn't anything to stop you. So I think that would probably be my biggest takeaway for this session.
yeah. That is definitely going into the notes because I feel that question, you can really sit on it and take away all the noise. And I really like how
Mm,
you put in there is that it's not so much the validation or the expectation, but take away the financial drive, take away all of that
mm,
and be honest
yeah.
with yourself
Yeah, I
and
think
not be
understanding your
scared.
drivers. Yeah, understanding your drivers. What's
Yeah,
driving you? Are you working a job because of money? Are you working? It all comes down to asking why. Why am I doing this?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is so powerful. And I have one final question is that if you could speak to your younger self now, what would you say? So yeah, I was like
Yeah,
that version of
that's a cool
you
question.
all those years ago, what would you say?
I would tell myself, strap yourself in, you're in for a ride, and you're going to have so much fun, and you are going to do so much in your life. And the biggest message I would have is just be yourself, just be you, and just live your life to the best that you can and chase those dreams.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much. I feel like as I said at the beginning, I feel like there's so many different like avenues that we could talk about, but I definitely think the most powerful thing about or everything that we spoke about is, tying your identity to different labels, that there is more when you remove all that noise and
Mm,
different ways of, over like getting through that, I think, and hearing it from somebody that has been through so many different avenues, but also hearing how they tied together. I feel that so many people that will listen to today's episode won't realize how, they might have left one thing, but that identity is still lingering there in some
yeah,
way, as you spoke about. Like, it was a slow process because, as you said, each job, it still was there apart until it wasn't. So I feel, yeah, as I said, there's so many takeaways there for allow people to reflect and, realize that they can live a life true to who they are when they're willing to find out what that is. And not just get caught up in the rat race, I guess. So thank you
yeah.
so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. And I'm really excited to share these with everybody. Even myself, I literally wrote down that question. That is just pondering. Like that,
Mm,
I feel like that will send so many people in just, even if they hear it subconsciously, I feel like that will be there on repeat.
yeah, yeah, I'm glad. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate
No,
it. Love to
that's,
chat.
yeah, that's okay. All right.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. I feel that there was so many good takeaways that Vanessa shared in her experience of, how CrossFit shaped her identity and after leaving the military and then rebuilding confidence and finding purpose again and discovering who you are beyond titles, uniforms and achievements. Today was just an honest conversation about identity, self-discovery, and learning that your worth is about far more than what you do. It's about who you are. So if this episode's resonated with you, we would love if you would share it and tag somebody that could benefit. Because if you've ever struggled with change, lost your sense of self, or wondered who you are outside of your career or sport, or just any of the labels that we wear day to day, this episode is for you. And until next time, guys, keep it real.